Todd Young Online presents Young Tales. Tales for the young and the young at heart. Today's story: Bulfinch's mythology, the Mabinogion. Pwyll, Prince of Dyfed. In the days when the land of Wales was still young, and the veil between this world and the next lay thin as mist upon the mountains, there lived a prince named Pwyll, ruler of Dyfed, whose seat was the shining court of Arberth. He was noble and brave, beloved by his people, yet the gods who delight in testing the hearts of princes had greater wonders in store for him than any mortal might dream. One day, as a feast was being held in his hall, Pwyll rose from the tables and went walking beyond the gates to a high green mound called Gorsedd Arberth. "Lord," said one of his men, "it is the nature of this mound that whoever sits upon it shall not go hence without either receiving blows or seeing a wonder." "Then," said Pwyll, smiling, "I would gladly see a wonder, and I fear not the blows." So he sat upon the mound, the wind stirring his cloak. As he watched the road below, there came into sight a lady riding upon a great white horse. Her gown was of shining gold, and the light of the sun seemed to gather round her as she moved. "Go," said Pwyll, "and learn who that lady may be." One of his men ran to meet her, but though he was swift, she passed by without haste, and the faster he ran, the further she seemed from him. He returned breathless. "Lord," he said, "no man alive can overtake her on foot." "Then take the fleetest horse in the stables," said Pwyll, "and ride after her." The man did so, and though he rode across plains and valleys, the lady drew no nearer. Nearer. Yeah. And at last he returned, weary and ashamed. "There is enchantment here," Pwyll said thoughtfully. "Tomorrow I shall see this wonder for myself." The next day Pwyll returned to the mount. He had his horse made ready and his spurs brought to him. No sooner had he sat upon the hill than the same lady appeared again, fairer than before, riding her white steed along the road. "Quickly, bring me my horse," he cried, and mounted before she was far. He followed her, galloping hard, yet the more he urged his horse, the further she seemed. At last, when his strength failed, he called out, "O maiden, for the sake of him, O maiden, for the sake of him whom thou best lovest, stay for me." Ooh. "I will gladly stay," she smiled, "and it would have been better for thy horse hadst thou asked me sooner." She halted and drew back the veil from her face, and when he saw her, he thought that all the beauty of the world was gathered in her countenance. "Lady," he said, "tell me thy name and why thou hast come." "I am Rhiannon, daughter of Dyfed the Old," she said. "They seek to wed me to a man I do not love, but I have chosen another, and that one is thee, Pwyll, Prince of Dyfed, and I have come to hear thy answer." "By heaven, if I could choose among all women of the earth, thee would I choose." "Then," said Rhiannon, "meet me 1 year from this day at my father's palace, and there claim me before all men." "Gladly will I come." And so they parted, and he returned to Arberth, but spoke to no man of what he had seen. A year later, Pwyll rode forth with 100 knights, richly arrayed, to the palace of Heavy. We're going with that. There was a great joy at his coming, and all the court was placed under his command. They feasted and were merry, and Pwyll sat between Dyfed and Rhiannon, shining like gold in the torchlight. But even as the carousel began, a tall, auburn-haired youth entered the hall, proud and noble of bearing, clothed in satin. He greeted the king and said, "Lord, I have come to ask a boon of thee." "Whatever boon thou askest, if it be in my power, thou shalt have it," Pwyll said graciously. At these words, Rhiannon turned pale. She whispered, "Alas, thou hast spoken rashly, Lord. For this is Goll, son of Clud, the man to whom they would have given me against my will." "What shall I do?" he said quietly. "Keep thy word," she said, "and yet I will find a way that he shall never have me." Then Goll spoke aloud before all. "The boon I ask is this, that the lady who is to be thy bride this night be given to me, with a feast and banquet prepared for her." And because of his promise, Pwyll was silent. Then Rhiannon said, "Lord Goll, thou shalt have the feast as thou askest, but not the lady. A year from this night, a banquet shall be made ready for thee here, and then I shall become thy bride." Goll was well content, not knowing he had been outwitted, and so departed with his men. But Pwyll and Rhiannon devised a plan. When the next year came, Goll returned to Eviad's palace for his wedding feast. But at the same hour, Pwyll arrived with 100 knights, disguised as beggars and huntsmen, as Rhiannon had bidden. Pwyll himself was clad in rags, great old shoes upon his feet, and carried a worn leather bag. When the feasting was loudest, he entered the hall and bowed low. "Lord, I am a poor man," said Pwyll in disguise, "and would ask but one boon, that thou fill this small bag with food." Goll laughed. "Gladly, poor man, bring meat for this beggar." They filled the bag, yet no matter how much they put in, it grew no fuller. "Will thy bag never be filled?" asked Goll. "Not till a noble lord shall rise," said Pwyll, "and tread the food within it with both feet, saying, 'Enough has been put therein.'" "Then I will do so," said Goll, rising. He stepped into the bag, and in an instant, Pwyll drew up the sides, trapping him fast, and tied it with a strong knot. He blew his horn, and his knights burst in. They seized Goll's men, casting them into his own prison, and came about the bag, each striking it in jest. The knights laughed. "What's in the bag?" "A badger," said Pwyll. And thus they played the game of badger in the bag, which, the bards say, was first invented that day. At last Goll cried out from within, "Lord, I have been bruised enough. I deserve not to die in a bag." Then Rhiannon spoke. "Let him live. Make him pledge that he will never seek revenge, and that he shall provide gifts to the poor and minstrels in thy stead." And so it was done. Goll was freed and swore his oath, and his men were released. And there was peace. Then the hall was set in order again for the true wedding feast, and Pwyll and Rhiannon were joined before all. That night they lay together in joy and tranquility, and the next morning Pwyll gave gifts to all who came to honor him, bracelets, gold, and fine horses. When the feast was ended, he said to Eviad, "Lord, with thy leave I will take my bride home to Dyfed." "May heaven prosper thee," said Eviad. And so they set forth. They came to Narberth, where Pwyll's court was arrayed to welcome them with feasting and song. All the nobles of Dyfed came to see the new princess, and to each Rhiannon gave a rich gift, a bracelet, a ring, or a jewel from her own hand. And from that day they ruled Dyfed in prosperity and peace, and the name of Rhiannon was spoken with wonder, for none before her had ever been seen who was half so wise or half so fair. So ended the first branch of the Mabinogion, the tale of Pwyll, Prince of Dyfed, and Rhiannon, the Golden Rider. A tale of love won through wit and wonder, and the promise of a destiny yet to come. For the son born of their union would one day bring sorrow, and the other world itself would stir again. But here's where we end for today. Young Tales is produced and narrated by Todd Young from Todd Young Online. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and join us next time for another story. Thank you for your support.